Well, hello, everybody. Thank you for tuning in today. Welcome to It's Time for More Injury Funding, the podcast for all who want to learn about legal funding and in the significance in the personal injury, wrongful death, motor vehicle injuries, traumatic brain injury, slip and fall liability, and many other types of law practice domains. I'm your host, Laura, founder and CEO of More Injury Funding, the legal funding counselors with passion for law, medicine, legal funding, and heart for all suffering individuals. More Injury Funding is a host of this podcast and sponsor, member, associate, or business partner of Academy of Truck Accident Attorneys, Sandy Springs Bar Association, Georgia Association for Litigants, and Georgia Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. In today's episode, we have a very special guest, Darren Miller, founder and senior attorney of D. Miller and Associates, PLLC, based in Texas, Houston, Texas.
Right.
Today, attorney Darren will dwell on one aspect of his law practice, namely sex crime cases and its subtleties. And also what led him to write his book titled Changing the Game, Strategies for Life, Business, and Practice of Law. Finally, I'll have a fun pop-up question for our guest today, so stay tuned in. You, my dear listeners and viewers, are here for a treat with attorney Darren Miller. Darren, welcome to It's Time for More Injury Funding podcast.
Hi, Laura. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So it's a great pleasure having you today. So your firm has been featured by a variety of media organizations, including Fox News, NBC News, Los Angeles Times, ABC News, the New York Times, USA Today, the Washington Post, HuffPost, Univision, and many, many more. You personally received several awards throughout the years, including Personal Injury Top Lawyers from H Texas Magazine, Mass Tort Litigation Top Lawyers from H Texas Magazine, Best of Business from Houston General, Top 100 Trial Lawyers from the National Trial Lawyers, Top Attorneys of North America by the Who's Who Directories, and Top 100, the National Black Lawyers Association. Can you please share with us what is the source of all of this attention that the law firm led by you received?
Well, Laura, again, thank you for allowing us the opportunity to speak to you about this topic of sex abuse cases. When I first got involved in these cases about 6 years ago, it was really amazing to me the lack of attention that these types of awful crimes were getting, and the fact that in many situations that folks were kind of sweeping these cases underneath the rug, or they weren't just getting the attention that I thought was important to be shed in this area of practice. Because again, what I've seen with a lot of the folks that have been victimized in this situation is that they don't get justice for the awful things that have happened to them, and it was time for us to do something about that.
And so tell me, which parts or areas or regions of Texas do you serve?
While we have a majority of our cases are in the state of Texas, but quite frankly, sex abuse crimes that we've gotten, they're all over the country. And so we actually have thousands of survivors, not victims, survivors that have been abused, and they're all across the country.
Okay. And before we get into more detail, what are the major types of law practice domains that you and your law firm handle?
So when I started practicing 24 years ago, Laura, personal injury was kind of the immediate fit for me. Servicing clients here in the state of Texas, and then we moved nationally with regards to our injury practice. So we do have all kinds of injury cases throughout the country. We've now also got involved in mass tort cases where you've got national defendants that we're going after against clients throughout the country that have a similar type of issue against a common defendant. And now, of course, we've kind of dovetailed into our sex abuse dockets and making sure that those survivors get the type of justice that I think that they're entitled to.
That's so great. So your firm stands out from many others in your region specifically because besides of practicing personal injury, medical malpractice, defective drugs, and defective medical devices, you also handle, like you mentioned, sex crime cases.
Correct.
Victims or their families come to you because they consider you the sexual misconduct victim lawyer. How did you get into this very specific and complex niche of law?
Great question. A few years ago, I was approached by a young lady who was 16 years old at the time, and she was unfortunately victimized by a doctor. This doctor had abused her for a very, very, very long period of time. It was systematic in nature. He kept on doing it. And as we started to dig into the situation, it was a problem that was not unique to her, but he was kind of picking on other young ladies that had similar traits as her. And so at this point, when we started to investigate and see and saw this was what was happening, we had to do something about it. It wasn't just about getting justice for her, but what can we do to change the pattern, to make sure that these types of issues became less frequent, and to make sure that the offenders of these crimes got punished. And so those became more important as we continue to move, getting more involved in cases like this.
And that's so wonderful. I absolutely love your passion and involvement in the local community and having heart for the people that you serve. And
Well,
and
yeah,
go ahead.
and, Laura, I have to tell you, and I'm sorry to interrupt you there. I'm a father. I have four children, two of which are young ladies. I've got my oldest twin. She just turned 20 years old. She's a sophomore at Texas A&M University, and my senior, she's a senior in college, and she loves to dance. And it's like, what kind of father would I be? What kind of an attorney would I be if I knew about these issues and I have the power with which to do something about them, and I'm not doing that? It was my job. It's my duty to shine a light on these things, to let people know that just because you have been victimized, it is not your fault, and that there are resources to help you. And please let people know what's going on, because the chances are you're not the only victim to this particular type of crime.
That's so true, and it's beautiful. So talking about students and the community, I know that every year your firm, D. Miller and Associates, offers a scholarship that supports young people in the pursuit of continuing education and
Correct.
making a difference in the world. These
Correct.
young heroes, in turn, give back to their local community, and you help them along the journey to make the future a better place for everyone. How does this scholarship work, and how long you've been offering it?
So we started, when I got involved in the practice of law, 24 years ago, I got help. I had a mentor to assist me in like learning what the law was about, getting exposure, encouraging people. And so very early into my process, I was like, look, when I have the opportunity, I want to do something more. I want to help. I want to try and create. So a few years ago, we started about 15 years ago with an internship program to kind of give students an opportunity to get exposure to what the practice of law is, and not just filing pieces of paper, but we wanted them to get on the phones, to talk to people, to speak, to actually understand what the practice of law was all about. And then just a few years ago, we started with our scholarship program. So that, hey, if you're really interested in the practice of law, and let us know what you want to try and do and how you intend to kind of pass it along and give back. And so we started this program a few years ago, and I'm really glad that my operations manager, her name's Marcela Garcia, her son's been with us for many years. He's going to be a senior at Texas A&M, and he just wrote me a very nice letter saying, Darren, thank you so much for the encouragement, for the
Oh,
assistance, and the financial support. So it's so much fun when you see a kiddo that you knew from a very young age, who now is an inspiration and wants to do more. So as much as we give in terms of just a little bit of money and encouragement, just the for feeling that I know that I'm doing something to make the community better, it's all the thanks that I need.
That's so beautiful. You are extremely passionate, Darren, about giving back to your local Houston community. Your charitable outreach program, DMA Cares, has worked with multiple organizations to raise money and awareness for causes close to your heart, from providing free beds and football lessons to children in need to organizing motorcycle rides for victims of traumatic brain injuries. You aim to bring joy and, of course, much needed funds to the community that you love so much. Why
Right.
do you do all of this? What is your main drive for being heavily involved with your local community besides being father?
So that's a great question, Laura. That started, I think, probably about 16 years ago, because we were doing something at Christmas time with regards to a giveaway for some of the kiddos, and then I was approached by someone with regards to a scholarship program giving away beds, and and he said, "Hey, Darren, did you know about this problem in the community?" And I'm like, "Well, no. What's going on?" And he's like, "There are so many kids that don't have a bed to sleep on. They don't have a pillow with which to sleep on." And Darren, think about it. What would happen last night if you had to sleep on the floor and you didn't have a bed or you didn't have a pillow? How uncomfortable would that be? And I'm like, that would be terrible. It would be awful. He's like, Darren, there were so many kids that don't pay attention in school because they didn't get a good night's sleep. And I'm like, wow, I just didn't put it together and I didn't think about it. But when I and then he's just kind of piecing it together. He's like, Darren, if they don't get that foundation in school, do you understand the ramifications of what's going to mean for them with regards to their education, with regards to them getting behind, with regards to their opportunities in future? I'm like, oh my goodness. And so we started with this program. We got our neighbors, our business folks to get involved, to raise money, and we gave away thousands of beds. And we not only just raised the money, but then we got involved in actually meeting the people and loading the beds up in the back of their cars and just hugging those kids and thanking us and them just kind of showing their appreciation. I'm just telling you, Laura, it just makes you feel good about, man, I've really helped someone and I've made a potential difference in their life.
I just love it. Maybe we can continue all the way through Georgia at some point. We'll talk about that on the
Yeah,
next episode.
exactly.
Now, let's get back to the topic of sexual misconduct cases. What are some common challenges faced by sexual misconduct victims when seeking justice?
Man, one of the most common issues that I see repeatedly in the situations like this is that, and the first thing I want to say is they don't like to be called victims, right? And I learned this when I represented a bunch of very intelligent women on a case that we'll probably talk about. I said, hey, don't call me a victim. I'm not a victim. I'm a survivor. I survived this. I'm a survivor. And so now I never call them victims. It's always survivors as related to these types of specific cases. And so, one of the things that I find just like, and it just really blew me away, one of my clients was like, look, I don't know if I should come forward. I don't know if I should say something. This happened several years ago, and my husband doesn't want me to talk about it. I said, what do you mean he doesn't want you to talk about this? Your husband loves you more than anybody else. Yes, I know he loves me, but he doesn't understand. And I'm like, okay, but you were victimized, you were sodomized, you were victimized for a long period of time. I know, but it happened years ago. He doesn't want other people to know about it, and so he's telling me, oh, that happened a long time ago. Just leave it alone. Just forget about it. Laura, sexual abuse doesn't function like that. It's not something that, okay, let me just put it away like a meal that I'm going to eat later and go back. It doesn't function like that. You have to be able to talk about it. You have to be able to confront your accuser. You have to be able to know, did I do something wrong here? And know that it wasn't your fault. And people to acknowledge that you were a victim of someone else's criminal activity and get closure with these issues. And so one of the big issues is that, hey, it was not your fault. It's okay to talk about it, getting your family to understand. Um, And I've since brought on a counselor, a female counselor, to help me with issues like this. Because again, unfortunately, many of the crimes involve males that are victimizing women, which is not always the case. But many times the counselor, it's easier for that female counselor to talk to those to the survivors of this situation, so that they can understand, hey, your husband, I appreciate his situation, but this happened to you. He never went through this. He does not understand, and we need to educate him so that he knows it's okay for you to talk about it, move forward with the case, and get justice for your situation.
Darren, how do you think our legal system could better support these types of survivors?
I think that we have to take a much more stern approach to the way in which this whole issue is addressed. Again, many times what a lot of the defendants like to do is, okay, did you catch me? Is this within statute? Am I able to get away with it? If I'm not able to get away with it, let's throw some money at the situation and hide it somewhere. And that's absolutely wrong. If these abusers can be criminally charged, they absolutely should be criminally charged. They should be put away with very stiff sentences. When you have corporations, okay, that know what's going on, they need to be tagged also. And the best way to do that, quite frankly, is financially. And we have to let the message out there that to the other survivors that this happened, to acknowledge the situation, and for other potential survivors to come forward so that those wrongdoers know they can't get away with it, they will be held responsible, and that the folks that have the power in these different companies understand they have a responsibility to protect their customers, their clients, the potential survivors, and to do anything that they can to make sure that these crimes don't happen before they do. And if they do, acknowledge them. Put processes in place to make sure they don't become frequent occurrences, and then holding people responsible when they have done something wrong. So it's those types of things that I'm trying to bring to the forefront. And I'm really glad that my survivors, we kind of put them together to talk to each other, to counsel with each other, so that other people, so they can kind of build off each other's kind of their own processes and the things that they've gone through, so that they can let the word out. So, hey, it's okay for them to feel it the way that they do, and make other people get involved if and when they feel comfortable to do so.
Mm-hmm. And so, since you've done so many of these cases, do you have an idea what is, and I know each case is totally different, but
Sure.
do you have an idea how long the average time would take for such a case to get resolved?
That's a great question. So it just depends, Laura. I've had certain situations where I've had cases, serious sexual assault cases get resolved in a few months. And then, for example, like with I've got the Boy Scout case that I'm dealing with. Again, when you're dealing with, I've got over 3,000 of these cases, and you're dealing with young men have been victimized for many, many years, sometimes even 20 and 30 and 40 years ago. And because there's so many people involved, so many defendants, so many companies, we're talking about this is taking 5 and 6 and 7 years with which to get done. It just kind of just depends on what you're dealing with. And because there's so many billions of dollars at stake in cases of this nature, it does take a while to get to the final resolution.
Now, Darren, can you discuss any notable landmark cases related to sexual misconduct that have had a significant impact on the legal landscape as an outcome?
So I just touched on the Boy Scout case, which I thought I'm very proud of that resolution. Just because, again, because we're dealing with, when you're talking about male on male abuse, that is just a really questionable issue to deal with. Same as with the clergy cases that I've dealt with that are just very unfortunate, that have been being dealt with for such a long period of time. And with the cover-ups that are involved in those situations is just kind of crazy. But I think the case that I'm most proud of is our USC sexual assault case, where we sued the University of Southern California along with Dr. Tyndall, a gynecologist out there who was abusing thousands of women over a period of 26 years. 26 years, where not only did he know it, his staff know it, the university knew it, but they weren't doing anything to stop or to hinder, or they did little or nothing to stop that process, which meant then thousands of additional women got victimized, got abused because of the inaction of the school and clearly the criminal action of Dr. Tyndall. That's probably the case I'm most proud of.
That's just so horrific. And Darren, we have about 10 minutes. So if the Zoom turns off, we will just start new Zoom, okay?
Sure.
So I don't want to rush through it, if you're okay.
Of course, absolutely.
Okay. Now, in your experience, Darren, what are some misconceptions or myths surrounding sexual misconduct cases that you often encounter?
The biggest myth that I see is like, oh gosh, they must be making it up, right? They must be making this stuff up because, the last big case that I worked on, the survivors ended up with a resolution of a settlement of a little over $1 million apiece in terms of a financial settlement, which of course is a lot of money. It's a lot of money. I don't care who you are. The problem is, as I was reading some of the comments on my website, it's like, well, gosh, I wonder if all that is real, if some people are making it up. And here's what I'm going to tell you, Laura. In that particular case, I spoke with each one of my clients, each one of them myself. And I listened to those stories. I listened to those facts. I've been doing this a long time, okay? And I represent right now currently about 63,000 personal injury cases throughout the country. And I know when someone's kind of stretching the facts with regards to this kind of an injury or this, that, and the other. I know that. But I'm talking with regards to these sexual assault cases, Laura, they're real. These things happen. People are not just making up a story about how they were digitally penetrated and going into tears and contemplating potential suicide because they want to try and get a paycheck. It's just not. And maybe they're making it up, maybe they are, but I'm just telling you, I've been doing this for 24 years and I can just feel the passion. I know when someone is not telling me the truth. And quite frankly, I get rid of those cases because I don't want them to in any way infect the rest of my pool. But I'm telling you, at least probably 98% of my clients that went through this, it was real. It was awful. It was terrible. And almost in every situation, Laura, money is the last thing they talk about, and they're concerned about justice, or I want to get this bastard for what he did to my life.
And how do you address these myths? Let's say you mentioned that somebody, make some comments on your website or maybe social media. Do you do anything about it? Do you talk to, do you spread the word? Like, what do you do to address these myths?
Laura, as a female, I know that you deal with this, and I can tell with your accent that you're also probably an immigrant.
What accent?
Every once in a while I have to deal with certain people that think of me a certain way because of the color of my skin. And so I don't even let those things bother me anymore. I continue, I educate people, I let them know, and oh, okay, wow, I guess this guy does know what he's talking about. The same way with you as you're a female. Okay, does she know about finances and money and everything else? And I've checked you out, Laura. People respect you. People will listen to you because you know what you're talking about. And so it's the same thing with my sexual abuse survivors. I let them know, I share stories with them. I let them know what's going on. And more often than not, after I explain to them the situation, it go through certain facts and ask them, would your wife make up a story like that if she was trying to get a paycheck? And they're like, no, that's terrible. And then they're like, okay, I get it. I understand what you're trying to tell me. So it's just about educating people with regards to certain things that they're quite frankly ignorant of, they're ignorant on.
And now, Darren, how do you approach this delicate balance between protecting the privacy and well-being of sexual misconduct survivors while also seeking justice?
By trying to be very real about things, Laura. I had a case when I had an adjuster that was just not understanding, well, what is your client complaining of? What is she complaining of? And then after I said, so let me tell you what my client's complaining of. The fact that she had to disrobe in front of this doctor, and the doctor was saying, oh, wow, your breasts are so beautiful. And the spotter, when they asked the spotter to go ahead and remove themselves, and then when she goes in there for a pregnancy test, and he says, oh, did you reach orgasm the last time that you had intercourse? Oh, well, there may be a problem down there. So let me see what I can do to help you, and puts a glove on and pursues to then digitally penetrate this young lady while looking at her in her eyes and just essentially getting his jollies. That is what we're here for. The abuse that your client made real to my client, who now thinks about it all the time. When I paint the real facts and let them know, and it's like, oh my gosh, no one told me that really happened. I thought it was a letter. I thought it was this. When I paint the picture, it's very difficult for them to get away from those facts, especially when my client is sitting next to me crying and in tears about a situation. And then it's like, okay, we need to make this thing go away.
It's terrible. So these questions led me to your thinking of your book titled Changing the Game, Strategies for Life, Business, and the Practice of Law. Can you provide an overview of your book and what inspired you to write it last year in 2022? Was it last year?
Yes, it was last year. I wrote the book, Laura, because I want to, when I started practicing 24 years ago, I had nothing. And I wanted to inspire people. I wanted to let them know, listen, I started with nothing. My father lent me $5,000. And now we've turned this into an empire with with hundreds of millions of dollars of resolutions, with people with great outcomes, with starting other businesses. And my big point, Laura, is that, hey, if I can start with nothing, you too can also create whatever type of success that you want to. And let me help you. If I can point you in the right direction, if I can tell you a story, if I can get you to somebody, that's what the point of I wanted to inspire people.
Okay. Did you my cat?
I did. It's all good.
Okay. Yes.
Yes.
He just has a mind on his own. Now, tell me, please, what are some key strategies or principles outlined in your book that can help readers succeed in both their personal and professional lives? And of course, if it's an attorney reading your book in their legal practices.
So one of the big things that I tell people is, don't make excuses, make things happen, right? Look, we can all come up with reasons why things can't be done. But instead, I need you to come up with reasons as to why you're going to make sure it happens, okay? And I want to inspire people to understand that you can do this. You can try harder. You can make things occur, that you can use the resources around you. Pick up the phone and call me. Ask for my advice. I will steer you in the right direction. If I don't have the answer, I will get you to that person who's going to give you some better advice. But you can make this thing happen.
Then, how do you believe the practice of law has evolved over the years, and what specific strategies can attorneys employ to adapt and thrive in this ever-changing landscape?
So, look, I happen to believe, Laura, that you have to be diversified. Um, that the most successful lawyers have a diversified practice. And what I mean by that is that you're not focused on getting all of your income in one area. I've seen many lawyers do that, for example, with regards to one perfect example, malpractice here in the state of Texas. I know so many lawyers that have done so well, made millions of dollars, everything went great, and then all of a sudden, the legislator comes in a few years back and says, "Whoops, okay, we're going to change the law, we're going to change the requirements," and all of a sudden, their multi-million-dollar practice goes into the toilet and it's worth almost nothing. If you're diversified, whereas, like for example, with me, I do a lot of mass tort cases. I do a lot of personal injury cases. I do a lot of special niche type cases. So even if, God forbid, personal injury goes left, then I can go depend on mass torts. If I see different opportunities out there in the marketplace, I can always pivot and change directions. The problem is that many lawyers are very traditional in nature. And traditional essentially means this is the way I'm doing it, here's where I'm going, and I'm not changing. And to me, if you're not about change and you're not prepared to do different things, you're probably already a dinosaur who does not realize that your practice is already dying.
So it totally makes sense. Can you, Darren, share any personal anecdotes or experiences that have shaped your own personal approach to life, business, and the practice of law, and how they are reflected in your book? Again, here is the book, which everybody has to get soon, and we'll give some clues how to get it.
Excellent, excellent. So, when I started, money was just, okay, I really want to make money. Let's make money. Let's go. I've got so much debt that I've accumulated through school. And so it was all about making money for the first few years. And I was like, then I realized fairly early after a few years, hey, you know what? Personal injury, I can make money. And so money was not really as big of a challenge for me because I could make it, I could generate it. And I was like, well, it's not fulfilling me. And so what did fulfill me? It was diversifying and getting involved in different businesses and doing other things. For example, now I made a bunch of money doing some mass tort stuff. And so what did I do? I've started a real estate company. Um, I've got a consulting company that helps lawyers diversify into the world of mass torts. Um, Everyone knows, of course, Attorney Ben Crump, who did the George Floyd case, who got involved in the Breonna Taylor, all kinds of different civil rights cases. Well, I was fortunate enough to become a partner in his law firm, so I own a piece of that company. As of last year, I opened 3 banks here in the state of Texas: Texas Traditions Bank, and the banks are kind of blowing up, and they're getting a lot of notoriety throughout the state of Texas. And my point is this: it's like I figured out it's not about money. Money is a byproduct of being happy and successful and doing good work, and the money will flow. And because for me it was generating different kinds of income and doing it in different ways and getting other people involved and being philanthropic as much as I've been able to try and do, those are the things that provide me fulfillment and energy and teaching and growing. And so it's now I get to kind of sow into the next generation and let them know, hey, stop chasing the dollars, do good work, learn, do the right things, and guess what? Good things will happen. And if you need help with that, let me know and I'll help you.
That's so, so true. I love it. Now, in your book, Darren, you discuss the importance, and you probably, partially answered this question, importance of mindset, attitude, and adaptability in achieving success. Could you
Yes.
elaborate on how these factors can impact success in the legal profession and beyond?
You've got to have that right mindset to want to succeed, to want to overcome, to want to do the right things. It's easy to make those kind of wrong, easy decisions to get that quick money in, to do things that might be on the fringe. It's very much more challenging to do things the right way, to not take the easy money, to put in the time, to build the infrastructure, to get those long-term dividends. And one of the things that my book just tells me to do is don't take those shortcuts, right? While you'll see some of those immediate returns sometimes, the long-term better relationship is to create that solid foundation, is to have a solid people that are underneath you, that you can trust, that you can sow into, in terms of, I'm going to teach these people and I'm going to show them this is how business is done. And that way, at least for me, they can kind of carry on my personal injury business or my banking, or while I'm able to check into doing different and other types of endeavors. And the same way I did that with my other businesses, it's the same way we've kind of how we started practicing law. I had a few solid people, and I'm Marcella, Betsy, Monica, that have been with me for 15 years, for 17 years, Marcella now for 20 years.
Oh wow! Next time I'm in Houston, we'll all celebrate together. That's a long time.
It's a long time. It is, and we learned together, we grew together, we made mistakes together. And now we've all come up together, because they know me, they appreciate me, they've taught me, I've taught them. And you've got to be able to have a nice foundation of people to help you get to that next level. And many people kind of forget that. One thing that really surprises me, Laura, is like lawyers, when they get so much money, you see them take, hey, look at my new Ferrari. Hey, look at me, I'm on the plane. And they forget, it's not about you being this great, fantastic lawyer. It's about your clients. If you do good work for the clients will bring other clients and bring money and other financial success. And lawyers seem to forget that. And so at some point it turns around, it's me, I'm the great one. No, you're not. You're not. Your success is predicated on the work that you did for your clients who trusted you. And you should never, ever, ever forget that.
I absolutely love it. That's a great also lesson for young people entering college, starting schools, or starting new projects. Take your time, study, put your head down, learn, and progress. Wonderful. Now, can you discuss any specific strategies or techniques from your book that can help lawyers enhance their communication skills and build stronger relationship with their clients, with their colleagues, their own families, circle of friends, and of course, local community?
So even today, I have right now, Laura, probably over 63,000 clients, and that is a lot, right? And I have a lot of
number.
It's a
I
huge
don't know.
number.
I don't know if I heard that one before. Okay.
63,000. That's crazy, right?
Wow.
But I still give my clients my cell phone number. We have something called like a weekend call list, whereas I call my clients on the weekend. Hey, thank you so much for speaking with me, for trusting my firm, for allowing me to help you. And I'm probably going to have, a few different text messages when I get off this Zoom, this meeting with you. And I'm going to call those people back and talk with them and speak with them and direct them in the right way, because there's no sacrifice with you speaking with a client and thanking them for trusting you, and you knowing their case and understanding their facts and giving them hope and letting them know that you're going to be their champion. And 24 years into it, I don't care if you're a slip and fall case that's worth $5,000 or you're an 18-wheeler case worth $2 million. I'm going to treat you with that same level of respect. I'm going to treat you with that same respect that you trusted me with your case to allow me to be your lawyer, to get you across that finish line. Because as I tell my lawyers now, you never know when that small little tiny case is going to turn into something really big. So you treat people the same way that you want to be treated. And so you it's just giving people respect. You give it and you get it. And that's why my phone doesn't stop ringing, because I never forget that. And I always tell my parents, hey, if I start getting too big for my britches, hey, you just slap me in the face. I changed your diaper. Don't ever forget that. Okay,
Yes.
okay, I got you, Dad. I got it. So
Oh,
you
I
just
love
don't
it.
forget.
And you mentioned when we, so I was, I guess, on your weekend list, even though I'm not your client, but that's how we met. Or, just reached out to me via cell on the weekend, which I truly,
Yeah.
truly greatly appreciate. And you had mentioned, Darren, that your parents are from Jamaica.
Yes, my father is from Jamaica. My mother is from Montserrat, and They grew up extremely poor. Both of them lost their parent. My mother never knew her father. My father lost both of his parents before the age of 16. So he had some older sisters that helped to kind of raise him. There's very little economic opportunity in the Caribbean, so they got educated in London, and that's where they met and kind of kind of where I grew up and where I was born in London, England, and for the first 10 years of my life. And then, the dream from there is you get educated and then you come to the United States to kind of make the dream come true in terms of finding job, finding employment, being able to take care of your family. And so that's where all of this comes from, the deeply rooted Christian and hardworking and the work ethics that I've got from my instilled in my parents from back home.
And just in a few words, how were you able or are able to pass it on to your four children? I know that you did that your two girls, right? The twins got accepted to the college just recently.
My oldest son is 22. I've got twins, boy, girl. They're sophomores at Texas A&M University. Whoop! And then my oldest is a senior in high school here in Houston, Texas. And to answer your question, it is tough. It is tough because, it's like, you want your kids to appreciate the struggle of kind of starting with nothing and then building something. But at the same time, it's like, well, Dad, we've always had food and everything's been provided and everything else. So it's difficult sometimes for my wife and I, who I love dearly, and she's the reason why they've all got scholarships and they're kicking butt. Because if it was
Oh.
me, I would let them have what that spoil them and everything else. But
Hmm.
it's a very tough balance to say, hey, look, this is what I started with, and I started with nothing, that's not their reality, right? And so it's like we still make them, you're gonna have to work to earn money to get this and to do those things. So we try to instill some of those values because Laura, you know as well as I do, if you don't do those things, they're not going to appreciate. They're going to expect certain things, and their work ethic is going to be diminished if we just give them certain things. So we try hard to inspire work, and if you do this, then you can achieve that, and you need to do it yourself. We're going to help you and assist you, but you need to figure this out for yourself. So we're figuring it out. They've so far made me fairly proud, but sometimes it's a little frustrating too.
I know that's what parent being means. Now,
Exactly.
one last question about the sexual misconduct. Back to that theme.
Yes.
What are some important considerations there and for individuals, who are hesitant or fearful about coming forward with their experiences of sexual misconduct?
So I hired because when we started to get involved in this, and I started to see how deeply rooted this problem was in society. Um, I hired a former district attorney. Her name's Rochelle Guyton. She was a district attorney, and she prosecuted sex crimes, right, against people, against perverts, against people who committed abuse and things of that nature. And so she gave me the criminal background and to see that side of things. Um, I was coming at from a civil perspective with regards to understanding what was going on. It's very tough to understand the entire world. But one of the things that I tell when I see survivors that come to me with certain issues, I encourage them. I listen to them. I support them. And so one of the things I would tell the listeners out there, anyone who says that there's an issue or there's a problem or they've been victimized, listen to them. Listen to them. I know the first thing we want to do is we want to go out there and we want to kill that person. We want to go get a gun, get the cops, But first, listen to that survivor. Oh my gosh, do you want to talk about this? Can I help you? And they have to do it in their own timeline. And it may take them weeks, months, maybe years to tell their story. But you want to encourage them. Look, if you don't want to talk to me about it, let's get you to someone who can help you, who can assist. Because there are some time deadlines and some statute of limitations issues and things of that nature. But get them to someone who can help process the story and the situation, because the last thing you want to do obviously is to kind of bottle everything up internally, and then they may try and harm themselves or something of that nature. So just opening up the channels of communication so it's more healthy for them, so that they can figure things out, so they can decide what they want to do next. And it's not about you, right? It's about the survivor. What is in their best interest? Not your reputation, not your embarrassment as their spouse or their family member. You need to empower and lift up the survivor. Okay? That's what we need to be focused on. And once we kind of figure out what that is, if it is needing some help, then get an attorney to give you advice with regards to, do you have something? Is this something potentially viable? What are my options? Can I go after them criminally, civilly, or whatever, but those particular ramifications? But tell your story to someone that you can trust so that you can at least get it out and start that healing process.
And what do you hope your readers will take it away from your book, and how do you envision it making it a lasting impact in their lives, businesses, legal practices?
I hope that I've told some very real stories, Laura, with regards to how things started for me, with regards to my struggles, the things that I failed at, the things that I did not handle so well. And it's a very real awakening with regards to starting with nothing and achieving certain things. And so I want them to understand the biggest takeaway from this is that you can also achieve success in whatever you choose to do with working hard, perseverance, and making things happen for yourself. Don't make excuses, make it happen regardless of the things that you're up against. I talk in the book a little about discrimination. I talk about how I handled the use of people calling me the N-word, things of that nature. But it's just to tell stories. That is never a crutch for me with regards to anything that I have to overcome. Laura, you've had to overcome things in your life, as have I. But it's always that is what winners do. That's what champions do. We overcome obstacles that are in front of us. And that's what this book is about. It's about overcoming those obstacles to become successful. And you too can achieve success in your life the same way that I did.
That's so great. Now, I hope, my dear listeners and viewers, you learned in this episode as much as I did about the subtleties of sex crime cases, and also how Attorney Darren Miller's book titled Changing the Game: Strategies for Life, Business, and Practice of Law can have an everlasting impact on the reader's life. Tell me, please, Darren, how do you overall help your clients achieve results they deserve? Do you do anything differently from other PI attorneys, personal injury attorneys, anything in your own unique way?
First and foremost, Laura, I listen. I listen to what is my client really wanting? What is their goal, right? And the one thing I tell them, it's like, many clients, many lawyers, hey, let me get as much out of this as possible. Hey, okay, let me close this as quickly as possible. Let me do this the way that I want to do it. Again, as I mentioned, I've got 60,000 plus cases. I don't have to worry about what my needs are. It's about, what do my clients need? What is it that you're looking for from this case? I ask my clients that every single time, because guess what? I don't have to worry about keeping the lights on or what's going to pay the next bill. Thank God, knock on wood. And so I explain them and make suggestions to them with regards to what I would suggest. But it's about listening to your client and making sure you achieve those particular goals, whatever those are, because it's not about me, and you got to keep your clients happy. And so that's one of the things that I always do. I am very in tune with my clients. I listen, because again, you have to understand as an attorney, you're working for your client. They employ you. They write and pay your bills and write that check for you. And so I have to make sure I've done my job to make that client happy, to achieve those goals, which many times is money, but other times I want you to punish this person. I want you to take this case to trial. I want you to make sure that I don't get stuck with these things. Whatever those things are, I put it in the file and make sure, hey, this is what we're going to get done for you. And then I achieve that goal for the client. And then knock on wood, many times they're happy with the result.
And if anyone needs or wants your legal advice and is looking for D. Miller and Associates, how can they reach you there? And do you have a website you want to talk about? Phone number, email, social media?
Yes, my website is dmillerlaw.com. Of course, we're heavy into social media with our Instagram account, our TikTok, our YouTube, all of those types of things. So please follow us on D. Miller Law. I like to kind of find out what people are interested in thinking about, what questions they have, and I put a lot of content out. And I'd love to have your listeners' feedback to let us know what else they want to hear about, or what else we should discuss that can provide some additional guidance for them.
And I absolutely love your short videos. You're just so articulate and provide so much information. And the main thing for me is you speak from your heart, and that's big. Again, go ahead.
Have to be, again, Laura, life is short, and you need to be a genuine type of person, because I tell people, don't be fake. Don't be fake about anything. Oh, I'm this awesome trial lawyer, but you've never tried a case before. Just be honest about who you are and what you've done. And if it doesn't work out, that's fine. But that makes me feel so good, is that I always tell my clients the truth, even when it hurts me financially.
That's wonderful. Now, before we conclude, I have one last question for you, as promised. You ready? Yeah. You ready, Darren?
Ready.
All righty. What's been the most memorable moment of your career so far?
Okay, that's a great question. So this is really interesting. So I was doing this sex abuse case that was just absolutely awful. And these defendants said, okay, Darren, we want to get this case resolved. We want to, get this one done, and we need to put it to bed. And we had them. These bastards were really bad defendants, and they'd done some really bad stuff. And so they flew down. They were from the West Coast, I will say. They flew down. We had dinner with them one night. Everything was fantastic. We wined and dined, didn't talk any business. And then the next morning they came to the office, and we sat down for mediation. And like, okay, all right, Darren, we want to get this case resolved. We want to get it done. We know we've got some issues. We had them dead to rights because their defendants were total bastards. And they sat down, and the first offer on the table was for $50 million.
Did you lose your conscience there for a second?
Well, so I didn't, Laura, because I'm a poker player, right? And while that number was huge, one of the things that I'm good about is kind of bluffing and, and reading my opponent's eyes. And I knew they had a lot more money, and I knew we had them. And so when they offered me the $50 million, I said, guys, thank you for your offer. I appreciate your time. I stood up. I went to the other side and I shook their hands. And this was in my office. I had one lawyer on my left, Andy, the other lawyer on my right, Rochelle. And I left. I just left, and they're like, what are you doing? They want to talk. They want to offer us a lot more money. What are we doing? And I left, and they called me, Darren, where are you? I said, I'm gone. I'm going home. Darren, they've got a lot more money. I said, when those bastards get serious, you tell them to give me a call. Well, what's serious to you? $100 million. Darren, what? We can get there. Listen, when they're serious, they can call me back. And so I left $50 million on the table. And keep in mind, at the time, Laura, I had nothing at the time, right? Relatively speaking, I didn't have that much in my account. So fast forward about 9 months later, that same case, which could have gone very, very badly, and I could have been sued and this, that, and the other, everything else. Oh, we ended up selling that case for $124 million. So it turned out great for everybody.
That's just beautiful. And I know you have a million other stories, but we'll make another series, a saga of episodes just for that, okay?
That sounds great, Laura.
That
Anytime.
that's amazing. That was again so wonderful to have you on today's episode, Darren. It was Darren Miller, attorney with the D Miller and Associates, PLLC, ladies and gentlemen. And I want to thank you all for listening and watching our story about the subtleties of sex crime cases and about attorney Darren Miller's book titled "Changing the Game: Strategies for Life, Business, and Practice of Law." Today, for more tips and tricks on legal funding and personal injury law related topics, follow me, like and subscribe at More Injury Funding. And it's time for More Injury Funding podcast on Spotify, Amazon Music, Google Podcasts, and all other major podcast platforms worldwide. And follow More Injury Funding on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, Pinterest, YouTube, Yelp, Google Business Profile, and my website at moreinjuryfunding.com. That's with 2 O's. I can't wait and see you all, my dear listeners and viewers, on my next upcoming episode. Tune in soon for our next guest. Until then, be well. Thank you again.
Thank you.